The first thing Mara Voss heard was the sound of her ex-husband's footsteps pounding against the marble floor behind her. She didn't look back. Her bare lungs burned. Her bruised arms screamed with every movement. One of her shoes had fallen somewhere behind her, but she kept running through the bright lobby of the Grand Meridian Hotel, her heart beating so violently that she could barely hear anything except the terrifying memory of Silas Crow shouting her name. For 3 years, Mara had believed she could survive him by staying quiet. For 3 years, she had hidden bruises beneath long sleeves, smiled at neighbors, and convinced herself that tomorrow would somehow be different. But tonight, she had finally left. And Silas had followed her. Mara crashed through the hotel's glass entrance, desperate to disappear among strangers. But the moment she stepped inside, she froze. A massive man stood near the elevators. He was broad enough to block the hallway, covered in tattoos, with a gray beard and eyes so cold that even the hotel staff kept their distance. Heavy chains hung from one of his hands. Everyone in the city knew the rumors about Rafe Calder. Some called him a criminal. Others called him a monster. Years ago, his name had appeared in newspapers beside words like violence, gangs, and death. To Mara, he was simply the most frightening man she had ever seen. And she had just run straight toward him. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness and second chances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Mara tried to turn away, but Silas burst through the entrance behind her. The color drained from her face. She stumbled backward until her shoulders hit the wall. Silas looked exactly the way he always did when he was angry, perfectly dressed, perfectly controlled, and terrifyingly calm. That had always been the worst part. No one believed Mara because Silas never looked dangerous in public. He was charming, successful, and respected. Behind closed doors, however, he had turned her life into a prison. Mara had spent years believing that a man like Silas would eventually destroy her. But that night, someone else saw the fear in her eyes. Rafe Calder. The huge man looked from Mara to Silas. He noticed the bruises on her arms. The torn fabric near her shoulder. The way she flinched when Silas took one step closer. Something changed in Rafe's expression. Silas demanded that Mara come with him, pretending she was confused and unstable. He spoke softly, almost kindly, as if he were trying to help her. Mara's knees nearly gave out because she knew that voice. She knew what happened when she refused him. But before she could move, Rafe stepped between them. The entire lobby went silent. Silas stared at him, clearly irritated, and warned him not to interfere. Rafe said almost nothing. He simply stood there, unmoving, like a wall Mara had spent her whole life searching for without knowing it. Silas finally made the mistake of grabbing Mara's wrist. Rafe moved faster than anyone expected. He caught Silas's arm and pulled it away from her. There was no wild fight, no dramatic explosion. Just one terrifying moment when Silas realized that the man standing before him was not impressed by his money, reputation, or threats. For the first time in years, Mara saw Silas afraid. Security arrived moments later, followed by the police. At first, Mara could barely speak. Her entire body shook as officers asked questions. She had spent so long protecting Silas's secrets that telling the truth felt more frightening than running from him. Then Rafe did something she never expected. He sat down several feet away from her and lowered his eyes. He didn't pressure her. He didn't tell her what to do. He simply said that she had survived this long, and that whatever happened next should finally be her choice. Those words broke something open inside her. Mara began to speak. She told the police everything. About the bruises. The threats. The nights she had slept with one eye open. The money Silas controlled. The friends he had isolated her from. The countless times she had almost left but convinced herself she was too weak. By sunrise, Silas was gone. And Mara was still standing. Over the following weeks, she learned more about Rafe Calder. The terrifying stories about him weren't entirely false. He had once been a violent man. He had belonged to a world filled with anger and revenge. But years earlier, after losing his younger sister to an abusive relationship, Rafe had walked away from that life. He couldn't save his sister. But he had spent the rest of his life trying to become the kind of man she would have felt safe calling. The dangerous reputation remained. Rafe never bothered correcting people. Instead, he quietly funded shelters, helped women escape violent homes, and protected people who had nowhere else to go. The world saw his tattoos and chains. Mara eventually saw his heart. Months later, she stood in front of a small group at one of the shelters Rafe supported. Her hands still trembled sometimes. Healing had not been easy. Some mornings, she woke up afraid. Some nights, she still heard Silas's voice in her memories. But she was no longer running. She was learning to live. And standing near the back of the room was Rafe, trying to remain unnoticed. Mara smiled when she saw him, because the most dangerous-looking man in the room had turned out to be the first person who had ever made her feel truly safe. If this story has touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us continue sharing stories about hope, courage, kindness, and the power of second chances. And before the ending, we have one special request. Comment, "I choose courage," if you believe that no one should have to live in fear. Mara once believed that escaping Silas would be the hardest thing she ever did. She was wrong. The hardest thing was believing she deserved a life after him. But sometimes, the moment you think you are running toward something terrifying is actually the moment you are running toward your freedom. And sometimes, the people who look the most dangerous are simply the ones who learned, through their own pain, how important it is to protect someone else. That night, Mara ran into the Grand Meridian believing she was trapped. She had no idea she was running toward the first day of her new life.